Stephen Reed, Mayor Reed, thanks so much for coming back onto the podcast. Good to see you again. You're looking good.
Hey, listen, thank you, man. I appreciate that. Thanks for the opportunity, and always good to come back and talk with brothers and friends, man.
Absolutely. So we did an episode together before, and we went really deep into your backstory. So we're not going to do that again for this episode. But you just released a book on October 10th, 2023, called First Best. I remember the original title was Raising Kings. So I
Yeah.
guess the publisher wasn't crazy about that title.
Well,
Talk about the title First Best. What does that mean?
yeah, the publisher nor the author. So it was both of us.
I thought that was your
I-
idea, Raising Kings.
no, that wasn't mine. No,
Uh-huh.
that was by my co-author, Fagan Harris, who
Hey.
I love. And but so there that theme was out there attached to a lot of different, songs, other books and other things. So it was kind of taken, it was kind of compromised as a phrase. And so I didn't feel like it was, really unique to the story. And one of the things I wanted to do was to have something that was unique and to express, kind of what I had gained and what I wanted to share, to that next generation. And that was not only to be the first, because that's relative. I don't view the first in most things in 2023, maybe the way we would have in 1963. Just a different time. But I viewed it more so from the standpoint of not just being the first, but being the very best. And that being something we ought to project more than just talking about this person first. Black mayor, well, that's great, but ultimately, my goal is to be the best. And that's how we came to that title and wanted to kind of add a little subtitle of the lessons and legacy from today's civil rights movement.
Yeah. And you're currently in your second term as the first Black mayor of Montgomery, Alabama, which is significant just because of the history of Montgomery, Alabama being
Yeah.
the cradle of the Confederacy, et cetera. And so one of the things I love when people write a book is I get to see the more granular path, right? Because when we had our first conversation, I did my research and I was able to uncover, things here and there, but I really got to see some of the behind the scenes and and so there's some terminology that I want us to define before we get into the conversation that you use throughout the book, starting with black belt. I want to talk about what the black belt is for the listener. And I also wanted to define, you used the term Joshua generation versus the Moses generation. So what are those terms referring to?
Yeah. So for those who are unfamiliar with the geography of Alabama, that includes a lot of Alabamians, by the way. So the Black Belt is a region that stretches across the central portion of the state, which was known for its rich black soil. It also just happened to have, in part due to its rich black soil, the highest level of black population living in this region of Alabama, from east to west. And so it's commonly referred to as the Black Belt, but it's an area that is probably more rural than it is urban, like other parts of the state, and certainly is more economically depressed, but rich in terms of history because that's where Selma, Alabama is. That's where Montgomery resides, Lowndes County. All these are in this Black Belt region of the state. So when I refer to the Black Belt, that's what we're talking about there. And as it relates to the Joshua generation, I first heard the term coined during President Obama's rise to running for office in 2007. And he talked about the Moses generation, obviously leading the Israelites out of the promised land, but certainly not making it there. And Joshua generation, Joshua and Caleb were those that made it to the promised land. Moses did not, being the beneficiaries of that work and of that sacrifice. And I view our generation very much as, part of that with, if Dr. King and Hosea Williams and John Lewis and Ralph Abernathy and Rosa Parks, and so many, Amelia Boynton Robinson, so many others. They were our Moses, then we are the Joshua generation, those that have gotten there have seen many of the benefits of their work and their sacrifice. And I can't put it near as eloquently as President Obama did when he was running for office and continued to do while serving, but that's what we're referring to in the book.
Yeah, and you had a pivotal moment. We talked about it in our previous conversation with Obama specifically, but before we get to that, there were a few other pivotal moments in your life. One was when you were in fourth grade and you happened to answer the phone when your dad was away. And he had a separate line, and you didn't understand why there was a separate line in the house. And so, talk to us a little bit about your dad for those of us who haven't heard your origin story, and just through that experience of you bringing it up later on and your dad taking you out to the garage. Like, give us a sense of what he was like.
Yeah, my dad, grew up in a single family household, single parent household. Um, you know, Dad was killed at the age of 9 in rural Alabama area, Connecticut County, Southwest Alabama, and came to Alabama State after going to the Army. And at Alabama State, he became a student leader. He was a student body president. And it was there that Dr. King had picked him to be one of those leaders who would go on to Raleigh, North Carolina, with many others to form the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, Diane Nash and obviously John Lewis and so many others who were part of that movement at the time. And, after that, while there, he was one of 17 students that helped integrate Montgomery's lunch counter. So he was an activist at the earliest time, and some would say the most dangerous time, when students were integrating and pushing for change all across this country, in particular in the South. So my dad has a great story, and I think he turned that into advocacy work, not only in leading the Alabama State Teachers Association, which was the Black Teachers Association at the time, which was, if we think about it, the primary way that most Black people in the post, civil rights world, or certainly post-integration world, were getting to the middle class was through government jobs, and education was a big one. So he was leading that organization, and then turned that into political advocacy when the elders called him to lead a group called the Alabama Democratic Conference. It was and still is the oldest Black political caucus in Alabama at a time when Black people were just getting the right to vote in Alabama. Very significant. And as a young, leader, someone who had been an activist, he channeled that energy into voting power and into political power to then go and push to become one of the first Black city councilmen elected in 1965 right here in Montgomery, Alabama. Served with your dad for a number of years there, but also took that platform, even larger, to the Democratic Party, to push the Democratic Party to bring more Black people into the party, seated as delegates in 1968, and to continue that push all the way through his work in public education as the second in command at one of the largest teachers unions in the country, the Alabama Education Association. So that's kind of a quick thumbnail sketch on his career, but it really has been, even as an elected leader and as a organizational leader, always been grounded in activism. And that's something that I think even we didn't know we were being taught, we were being taught. Or we didn't know we were being told, we were being told. And something that, I really appreciate, something that certainly is a part of my approach, not only to what I do as mayor, but just kind of what I do overall.
So you're 9 years old. You answer the phone that day. What does the caller say?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry about that. I forgot that part. I'm sorry. Yeah. So fourth grade, getting home from elementary school, my dad is on the city council. It's pretty much the face and voice for, Black political influence at the city, and certainly one of two or three at the state level here. And, it's interesting for me to think about that was, 84-ish, 1984, I'm pretty sure. Um, and to think about how proximate that was to Dr. King being assassinated. And kind of, 16 years seems like a long time, but it's really not now that I've gotten older. It doesn't seem like that long ago. But I picked up the phone as a fourth grader, and the caller says, is Joe Reed there? And I say, no, he's not, or something to that effect. He said, well, good. He said, well, good. Tell that nigga if he doesn't shut up, we're going to blow his GD head off. And it was like, wow. I mean, and he says it in a way that, maybe if you've seen some of the old John Grisham books that were adapted to movies with that Southern accent and that level of hate. I mean, I can't even, act it out. For me to hear it as a fourth grader, I mean, I wet myself at the time. I mean, it sounded real because I grew up hearing about Dr. King, being assassinated, not just like once or twice to read about it, but I mean, hearing about it. We heard about Medgar Evers being assassinated in his driveway, hearing about it. And, for us, that's why my dad, in part, always pulled into the garage, which, I didn't know at that time. So to hear somebody say that, just somebody who as a child, was just very real and striking to me. And it was certainly a pivotal moment, growing up, and kind of let me know that things were a little bit different for me than they probably were for some of my friends and family.
Mhm. And your dad took you out to the garage and he put you inside of the infamous Oldsmobile?
Yeah. He just, he took us outside, or took me outside, and just, kind of talked about why he did the work that he does, what he was doing at that time, and why it was important that we not let that, dictate our outlook onto other people. And, he just kind of told a story of understanding the sacrifice, that he was making, but also the cause that he was committed to. And he just talked about not letting hate drive us, not letting bigotry drive us, even if it drove other people. And it was just something that still stays with me, to this day.
But he also showed you something from the glove compartment as well to kind of
Oh,
ease your mind a
oh
little bit.
yeah. Yeah. He showed us his piece. He showed,
The Smith and
showed us his
Wesson.
piece. That's right. He showed us his piece. And because we could never go in the glove compartment. It was like off limits. It was like, come on, man, what, you got some gum in there? You got some candy you don't want us to have? It's like, no, it's not gum or candy. There was some heat, as they say, and that's kind of where he kept it. And I understood why he told us. Told me why. He had told my older cousin that we just didn't know. My brother and sister, now, or at least I didn't. And he just told me, why he carried it.
What's interesting is I remember discovering my dad's piece. He had a piece as well. He kept it in his sock drawer. I don't know why he kept it in his sock drawer, but under the same kind of circumstances, he would get these crazy phone calls. And I remember a couple times he would leave the house late at night with his gun. I don't know where he went or what he did, but it was, it was a tense moment in those days in Alabama, back during his city council days as well. But just to flash forward, right? You graduate, you wanted, just like me, you couldn't wait to get out of Montgomery, Alabama, get as far away as you could. And so you end up working at American Airlines, and you're kind of, what are you, like a data analyst or something like that? Or
listen, that's a nice way of putting it. I was a data monkey. We were just keying in stuff, man. We were just doing stuff, all day. It seems like into the evening. I mean, we're just keyed in stats and data, all that. The title was financial analyst, marketing performance. But yeah, it was a, come in at the bottom type job, but it was, part of the management leadership program. You start at the bottom and hopefully you rise up.
But, I'm a strong believer that whatever people are doing, whether you're working at the deli, at the supermarket, or if you're working at a toll booth, you are learning something that's going to come into play later on in your purpose, in your life trajectory. And so looking back now at those American Airlines days, you talked about how they didn't want to hear anything you had to say unless you could back it up with numbers. So what were
Yeah.
some of the takeaways that you now reflect back on and think, okay, wow, I got this part of my current job, the way I see things now, from that experience?
Oh yeah. Man, so much. I learned in that job, and I tell people, and I, run my own business as well. You learn probably the most when you're having to do things at a kind of at that grassroots, at that bottom level, right? Because you're so close to everything and everyone. Versus, as you kind of rise up, you kind of get a little further away. Sometimes you get a little insulated, and you aren't quite as in touch as you think you are. But some of the lessons I took away were, one, um, the customer isn't necessarily always right, but the customer always matters, right? So it's not a matter of them being right or wrong, but they matter. They're relevant to your bottom line when you're in business, regardless of how large your business is. Perception is reality. But the other thing is, um, that data drives results. That numbers are king at the end of the day in terms of what ultimately, businesses and organizations rise and fall on. You can have your emotions, you can have your opinion, but the data and the facts are going to be key drivers. I think the third and probably most key important is that diversity, was tantamount at American. Global company, something I bring to this job right now, people from all different backgrounds and beliefs. And essentially, you were brought together to respect differences. And, for us, um, that can be hard sometimes. It can be hard, it can be tricky for us to do. But coming in there that first day and seeing that banner, respecting differences, coming from, Morehouse College, where, very, conservative, HBCU, all men, in particular that time, across the street, of course, from Spelman College, all women, but it was different. And it was like, okay, you got people literally all around the globe speaking various languages, and there was something there. And the whole goal was, we're a team, we're an organization, and we're driving things forward, and we respect the differences that we may have. And that's a philosophy that guides me to this day.
Yeah. You also mentioned in the book how you realized from that experience how interconnected everything and everyone was. Like that was, even though it was based, I believe, in Dallas, but you were dealing with circumstances and issues and opportunities all around the world, because obviously it's a global company. So
Yeah. I think, well, one, it's based in Fort Worth, and I would be shunned for life if I didn't correct that. And most people say Dallas, but only inside the culture of AA is there the distinction that there's Fort Worth and there's Dallas. And people would say, oh, no, the Dallas airline is Southwest. So if you want to go there, go over to the Southwest and let them give you some peanuts. That's what we used to say back in the day, right? Well, Southwest would give you those peanuts. Hey, but on those flights, to Chicago and everywhere else, those peanuts came in handy. So I'm not
yeah,
complaining. Um, but no, I think the interconnected, part of, working there, working long hours and working with other high achievers and go-getters was that, you realize there's far more we have in common than we don't. And I was just always, curious about other parts of the world. You do a lot of, world traveling now, and you've done it for a number of years. I was curious about that. We were brought up as travelers, but not necessarily international. We were going to see family, in big cities. And then in those big cities, Chicago, Detroit, New York, and parts of Jersey, you get introduced to these other, ethnic enclaves, Little Italy, all that stuff, Chinatown, whatever it may be. But for me, I think the interconnected piece was very important because um, it showed me that even in a big company and even in a big world, there's just varying degrees between us all. And I think that helped genuinely grow uh, my, personal, self spiritually. I became more mature in part because of that, became more conscious about other cultures, and other people and what, you know, they valued and how that was similar in some ways, but different in many others. And, but being able to appreciate that was just a tremendous takeaway. I tell even people to this day, didn't serve in the military, and I know that's someplace else where people get thrown in together, and you got one mission. But being at a company or organization like that, even though you don't appreciate it in the moment, if you respect it enough, it will add value for the rest of your life in terms of how you look at things and how you really go about your life and how you treat others.
I mean, it sounds wonderful. And, you're living in a major metropolitan area and you're able to travel all around the world. How did you know it was time to leave to go to grad school?
Yeah, I think I got a little frustrated, with I kind of got somewhere. So when I was recruited, they was like, "Hey, you start in this company, you're going to be on this rotation, right? You start in this department, and you get to see all sides of market. Well, market at a big airline, man, that sounds fun. Again, nobody tells you that 60 hours a week you're going to be doing a lot of Excel spreadsheets, a lot of analytical work. You're thinking of the four P's and all the things of selling and promoting, and all that stuff. But kind of being locked into being a numbers guy, that was never really just me. I wasn't really one to be just in the cubicle, for the rest of my career. I really thought that I had more skill in my personality and just who I am than that. So, wanted to do a little bit more professionally, want to get paid more like most young professionals. I decided to get out to the management consulting world, which a lot of my good friends are going into coming out of college. They were making very good money for our age at the time. And they seem to be having a great time doing it. And so I was like, man, I think I can do that. And sounds fun. And, let's see where it takes me. And ended up getting an offer with a small firm in Atlanta. And then shortly after that, within a calendar year, 9/11 happened. And so the market, the economy just goes into, just craters. So 30% of the company is laid off and, last hire, first fire. That was me. So just after buying a condo in Buckhead at the time, thinking I'd made it right next to one of the places that did it. He wasn't did it. I think it was Pup Daddy. Owned at the time. So I was, living my best life. And then, real world happens. And it was like, not so fast. Justin's, that was it. That was the spot in Atlanta. Justin.
Yeah.
And so at that point, it was like, okay, you've been thinking about going back to grad school. This may be the time to kind of figure things out. And that certainly helped me make that decision.
Yeah. And you had a passion for business that time and having your own business. And you had the bright idea of starting up a franchise in Montgomery, Alabama that your dad tried to talk you out of. I love the conversation in the book where y'all were eating hamburgers and your dad's trying to tell you how thin the margins are in the restaurant business. And you're not buying it. He goes, how much was your hamburger? You said $2.
You got it down. That's actually right.
So anyways, you open up Roly Poly. I remember this. I remember you having this franchise and because my brother worked there, Dustin worked there for a little while.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, you mentioned how this was a 4-year long endeavor that didn't quite turn out the way you wanted it to turn out. And it culminated in this incident that happened at 9:57 in the evening.
Yeah. That the entrepreneurship thing is something, the bug I still have, right? So I in another chapter of life, I'm going to get back to that because I still believe that it's uber important to do. And I probably follow business for good or bad, probably as much as I follow it, probably more so than I follow politics. So still very interested in that because of why I think it matters to create jobs and to be able to show that example. In particular, in a city like ours, I tell people this quite a bit, that in Montgomery, we talk a lot of um, politics, prayer, and we talk protest, but we don't talk profit. And that's not to say that money is everything. It's not. But in the realm of American society and the world of capitalism, it's important. And it's something that here in the South, most Black communities have not really championed, much less conquered. And it's something that we still have to do. And so it's important to me. So I was reading Black Enterprise, all the time. And I was taking all these notes and all these small business startup things. And, at that time, Amazon was still a bookstore. I told a group this recently, and they were like, what? They didn't even know like Amazon started this online bookstore. And I'm like, yeah, where you can buy my book. They're like, it was just a bookstore. It's all it was. And they just couldn't conceive it at the time. So, being passionate about growing the business, yeah, we thought we'd get in there. We were going to grow this franchise and sell it and keep turning things over. And little did we know that you got to have a little bit more capital than just, what's in your checking account, just what's on some credit cards to grow and expand your business. So when that incident happened, we're about to close up. And again, when you're running, your own shop, you do everything. And I just remember, looking down and about to close up, and I was kind of looking at the shelf right under me, kind of like I am right now. And when I looked back up, it was a gun, right in my face. That gun is, kind of right there, just out of the blue. I mean, I was like, wow. And the first thing I thought about was the teenager, who was working there, a real jovial guy. I mean, he made it fun. It didn't matter if it was 1,000 people that we had to, do orders for that day, if it were 100. And I just remember thinking, man, do not shoot him. Do not shoot me. I do not want to tell his mom, that him working here got him, hurt or killed. And so, I just kind of say, take all the money, just go and try to do everything I've been teaching my cashiers at that moment to do. But it was just something that, I never forgot. And, I think it's something that humbles you in a way that, one, you got to know there's God on high who's looking down to guide you. And at the same time, it just kind of put into perspective what really mattered, what counts. And at that time, I wasn't thinking about anything superficial, anything symbolic, or any money. It was, don't shoot this kid back here, and hopefully don't shoot me, just take the money. And, we were all blessed that no shots were fired, nobody was harmed, and they got out of there with a few $100s that, we got back. So, yeah, something that still sticks with me for sure.
Yeah, I mean, later on, as mayor or running for mayor, that became one of the themes of your campaign is we need to make it easier for people, especially Black-owned businesses, to raise capital. But before running for mayor, you decided to accept the call to become probate judge in Montgomery, Alabama. And that was in part due to, was it Sophia's Barbecue, the woman who ran that shop?
Yeah.
Getting a runaround to get that get a license, and you thought, this is not fair after having your own experience in running a business. So again, it all comes together, it all plays a part, and it becomes a part of the motivating factor for taking you to the next step along your own trajectory. So talk about running for office for the first time, not quite sure if you were going to win. What does that even mean? How much does that cost? Like, what's a real world consideration? Because somebody out there may be listening to this right now.
Sure.
Thinking, maybe I should run for office, but I don't really know what that means. And what would it, I mean, sounds like you were connected politically through your dad. Is that something that's necessary for someone to have? And if they don't have that, what's the next best thing to do?
Yeah, I think that, for me, I ran because I was, I always say out of frustration and inspiration. I was frustrated by the lack of change when I came back to Montgomery. I'd gotten on boards. I tried to do things kind of outside of the elected establishment, but just didn't see the growth. didn't really see the movement coming. And more importantly, like, I didn't see the mindset changing. I think I was more impacted by that. And I was just like, wow, man, we can't just be satisfied with these little baby steps we're taking when other folks are taking giant leaps, right? In other communities. So after trying to get, friends of ours to run, other people to consider it, um, you know, it came to me in part out of the inspiration of President Obama's victory and what that meant, that, maybe this was our time, right? And maybe I was one of those that needed to step up and lean in, if you will, to the position of public servant. And for me, it was a gift and a curse to have parents who were active, who were known. So the gift was certainly you come in and there are people who like you. And people say, well, that's Joe and Molly's son. That's great. We know them. We love them. They've done good things in the community. We're going to support you. But there are also those people who think that, oh, man, you just see it because of your parents, right? You couldn't do it by yourself. So you're just you carried on the family business and you all aren't helping anybody. So, and that was part of the reason why I left Montgomery, was to kind of create, and I talk about that in First Best, was to get out from under that shadow of, peers and last name and all this, to get somewhere, even though it wasn't geographically far, culturally Morehouse was night and day, because, you've got so many people there from so many places. So when I came to run for office, it did help to have that understanding of politics and public service. And certainly it was a net positive. But the drawback was you had to kind of push back on this thing that you're not your own person. And I'm like, man, I left here and did more away from here than most of y'all have ever done. Y'all the ones who ain't never left. It's like I left and came back and, just found the cars sitting on, 2 cinder blocks here. And, you all hadn't done what I would have hoped or would have thought. So for people who maybe listen, maybe interested in public service, I would say, one, if your heart is in it, think about it. Long before I ran, I worked on campaign. I volunteered on campaigns. Then I worked on campaigns. And then, I ran myself. And so, I tell people, you don't have to jump into the deep end. You can kind of test it out a little bit and see if you like it and see if you don't. But then the second thing is, you got to have a good nucleus of friends and family. And I had that. I had friends that were encouraging, family that was encouraging, because you need those things, in particular, if you aren't familiar with the system, wherever you may live. But I encourage people to get involved, to get active, and to talk to those people who are in public service, because many of them are looking for bright young minds in particular, but people with, outside ideas to help move the agenda. And that for me was very big. And then I guess finally, it was about how do we go and make our case to the community that's been with this person for so long. And I think that there's not much better we can do. And my argument was one that it was time for us to move in a different direction, for us to move more proactively towards progress and equity. And it was something that I thought the elders really had set the pathway for. And the community was supportive of it and brought into that first run in 2012. And again, coming on the heels of coming at the same time as President Obama's reelection, there was a lot of symmetry there. And there was a lot of interest and a lot of energy behind bringing, some new ideas and new faces and thoughts to the table here.
You also probably hope you don't get tested so much, and you were kind of pressured pretty early on because the gay marriage was legalized under your tenure, and you were in Alabama, right, which is not known as one of the more liberal states. And there's 67 or 68 judges, and they reach out to everybody and say, "You guys, we're not following this Supreme Court uh, you know, judgment. We're gonna do our own thing. We're Alabama,
Yeah.
and you had you could have easily fallen in line. But talk about that experience and what went through your mind. Because again, you're in Alabama, man. It's not that, as you to your point, you're not that far away from Jim Crow, civil rights, and all that stuff. Something crazy could theoretically happen.
Yeah. I'll tell you, to be honest, you say, well, I'm thinking at that time, I didn't know that I was stepping out, right? At that time, I was really just doing what I thought was right. And I've kind of used this analogy before. I said, sometimes it's not that you step up, it's other people step back. And it was one of those, like, wait a minute. I mean, this is simple. It is the right thing to do. It's the law. Let's just do it. And man, I mean, I was blown away at the time by so many people, uh, who had these just thoughts. Again, I go back to my time at American Airlines and respecting differences, who had these thoughts of what things should be and what shouldn't and how they would go about it. And it was just amazing to be in those conversations. And so at that point, it was like, oh, okay, you guys aren't just stepping back. Y'all are stepping back and want to make a stand on this. And for me, it was like just the opposite. And I kind of felt myself being in that moment that we had read about around pivotal times in American pivotal moments. I was like, well, okay, what would you do? And what are you going to do? And I was like, we're going to hold down the fort. We're going to push through it. We're going to be, um, you know, loud about it. We're going to be very direct and intentional about this and why it matters that we here in Montgomery in particular set this standard. And it's just one that I didn't think in the mid 2014 or somewhere in 2015 that we'd be having a discussion. And it was a moment that I'm proud that, one, initially I did what was right. And then two, I'm glad that even after friends and supporters say, okay, well, hey, you did that, but do you really have to embrace it so much? Do you really have to, kind of carry this banner of the LGBTQ plus, and same-sex marriage? And it was like, yeah, we have to do that. And here's why. And here's why it's not okay just to be silent on the matter. Here's why it's not okay just to kind of be meek and mild when it comes to moments like this. Because you have to meet resistance, where it is, and you have to push back. And I think that is something, again, that goes back to our parents and, being taught or being around activism my whole life. And that was kind of the activist side, kind of pushing back on this notion that, no, we're just going to, go by the law. Yeah, we're going to do that too, but we're also going to make sure that Montgomery and Alabama are reconciled where they are and how we're trying to move things forward to bring out more equality for everyone.
Do you feel like going against convention in that one incident sort of gave yourself permission to become your own politician, your own person, to proceed in your own way by your own moral compass?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yes, I think so. I know that after that, and I kind of talk about in the book when Justice Moore, saying he was going to arrest all these judges, right? Remove us. Well, I had to do a double check. I was like, he can't remove us. Can he? I was like, let me just double check the code of Alabama over here on my shelf. At that time, I was the office, but more importantly, as I kind of share the book, when I talked to our sheriff there, Cunningham, and I said, hey, Justice Moore, talking about removing us from the book, he, kind of gave me one of those looks out of that side out, like, whatever. And I don't know what language I can use, but hey, Sheriff Cunningham is one of those sheriffs. Let me just put it like that. He uses very strong language. And basically he was like, that ain't happening here. And that ain't what he said. He was like, and I wish he will come down here and we'll show him who's running what. And, that also, having, again, a colleague, Sheriff Cunningham, the first Black sheriff in Montgomery's history, Montgomery County's history, and people don't know how powerful the sheriff's office is in most states, not just the South, but the Midwest, all the way out. The sheriff is an immensely powerful, if not high profile position. Sometimes we kind of, mix up profile and power. It's not always equated there. But I think having someone in that position say, I got your back, also kind of fortify me and to make those decisions that, no, this is our time. We're going to move this forward. Yeah.
And then later you ran for mayor. What was the difference in running for mayor versus running for a probate judge from a real world grassroots perspective?
Yeah.
I know you were the favorite and you ended up winning by 67% of the vote, but did you find that you had to run harder? Was it as much effort into it, or how did that change?
Yeah, I felt I had to run hard again, to prove myself, one as my own person, but also that I was ready for the position. It's one of those things where I kind of look back and say, maybe I should have, run even earlier, before then. But again, I trust the path that's been laid before me. But running for mayor was much more visible. And I didn't realize it at the time, what it meant symbolically, not only the people who were in Montgomery, but the people who were not from Montgomery. And I think that's kind of when I learned a little bit more appreciation of Montgomery's history in the country, not as a big city, but as a historic city because of the bus boycott, Mrs. Parks, who you and your family knew, Mr. Parks and what took place then, but the Selma Montgomery March for voting rights, what all of that meant at that time to generations of Black people and white Americans as well. I learned that as I was running for mayor, just the emotion that people had. And this is going to sound crazy, probably you and your listeners, but I had so many people here talk about the emotion they felt like it was similar to President Obama's win. And I'm thinking to myself again, that's presidential level. We're just talking about, mayor here. But for people on the ground, and for local people people that had ties here, their parents, grandparents, whatnot from this area, from the state, it meant a lot. It was almost like this last, bastion that had to be conquered, right? And so running, there was pressure, but it was a profound joy for me because I really felt like I was prepared for it. I practiced for it, and I was embracing the challenge that I would see once we got in here, to be able to quarterback the city, to be able to bring about change, and to really be able to put my finger on the scale, if you will, to right some wrongs that had never been done before.
Let me ask you this, man. I want you to, I'm inviting you to be transparent here, okay?
Yeah.
We've all felt imposter syndrome, okay?
Yeah.
You win mayor of Montgomery. To what extent do you feel you walk into the office, you've never been a mayor of any city before. Like,
right.
Do you feel like, what the fuck? Who able to do this? Like initially, those first few weeks, like what is that like to win the mayor of such a historic place and, story, incidents happening, good and bad? Like, but what is that like?
Man, it is almost like you're watching Netflix series or something that's out there. You kind of view yourself kind of outside in, right? Like it's this drama, and you kind of just kind of amazed at what happens next. And no, you don't feel like. I remember when the guys came to pick me up, and they had 2 or 3 SUVs. They came to pick me and my wife and kids up. Look, it was just, mentally, it was just like different. Overwhelming. And then get into the office and to have so many people, grocery stores, church, ball games, just running a quick errand to the dry cleaners or, picking up some food or whatever. So many people ask for your picture, tell you thank you or congratulations. Man, it was amazing. And the feeling, really that kind of started to settle in. This is in weeks, not months, but in weeks was responsibility. Like, whoa, okay, now, all right, you're in this place. Not only do you not have to mess it up, I mean, not mess it up, but you want to make sure that you make it right.
Mm.
And where do you start there? And who's who, and kind of where do you go? So it's a real different feeling, and to kind of be watched and know that people are watching you. But also, I tell people this: as many critics as there are, man, you hear from so many people who are praying for you and pushing for you, who will help you. And I mean, that outweighs the negativity. I mean, you hear from so many people. And again, even being from here, growing up in a political family, and I kind of, share this in the book. I did not realize, what becoming the first Black mayor here meant to so many people. And again, I've talked to famous athletes, famous entertainers, uh, very, very wealthy people, billionaires. It is, I mean, I'm amazed at what this has meant symbolically to people who I would never think would know my name, would know anything about me long before I even thought about writing a book. Um, and would look and view this place as somewhat, sacred ground. And that's something, look, I still kind of wrestle with, I still have to kind of check myself. So when I go to a Spellhouse homecoming, or I go to Howard University and hanging out, it feels good to kind of get that, be brought back down to earth a little bit by your frat brothers, your friends, and the guys who know you win. Because you kind of need that, because sometimes you can get caught in this kind of surreal space. And I got to share this story. I was in Martha's Vineyard this summer, and I was reading about, President Obama's, coming there for the first time. And obviously they live, I have a house there now. And they weren't, on the island when I was there. But it was just fascinating when I was just kind of thinking, I was like, whatever I have, I was like, I cannot imagine what this man and his wife and family must have felt with the country and the world, right? Like, I cannot imagine that way, that level of weight, but also just a level of interest in everything that, you pick up a hamburger, somebody's riding around, always eating a hamburger, if you go out and you wear, some type of, dad jeans, somebody jumping on your jeans, and then, just whatever it is, right? And I was like, that is different. It's a lot of responsibility, but it's also, I think, one that you never quite get used to. And so you need that inner circle of friends to kind of, be able to kind of check you a little bit and bring things back into focus so you can continue doing what people want and are looking for you to do in your role. So it's
Speaking of
been a
which,
tremendous ride. Yeah.
yeah, you're part of a group chat of other mayors. What is that like? What are you guys talking about in this group chat? Group
Oh,
chat got
man.
leaked. What did we see?
If the group chat got leaked, what was they saying? Definitely a different side of brothers that, live in big cities, major cities. But we're interested in what Drake's new release sounds like. Want to know, okay, how much did your wife or your lady friend spend on her Beyonce ticket? We make fun of one another, and we kind of hold each other, in a space where we can all be ourselves. But then at the same time, we're there to support one another. Somebody has something happening in their city, or somebody has, something that, may be challenging. We were there to kind of lift one another. And the thing that we talk about, now is how blessed and fortunate we are, because the previous generation of Black men that came after the movement, didn't know what they were up against. And so we talk about those guys that came in the late 60s and the early 70s, and the fact that, okay, we at least have that model of what to do, what not to do and how to do it. They didn't have that. And the communities, didn't always understand or appreciate that, what this power structure how it's made up, in this country. And so our group chat, man, is one that it can be lighthearted, and somebody made fun of my picture on the book cover, and what was Reed thinking then, and fill in the little thought bubble. But at the same time, we encourage one another to be bold and to be unapologetic in our quest for change. In that, we realize we stand on the shoulders of many who came before us, but that our folks in our community are looking to us as, their peers to bring about that substantive change. And there can't be enough that we can do to help our folks in our respective cities and communities.
Beautiful, man. You opened the book. This is my final question. You opened the book with a bunch of ideologies and philosophies that you learned from your father. Stuff like watch what people do rather than listen to what they say. I don't know if he said this, but you mentioned history never marches in a straight line. It zigzags.
Yeah.
Keep God in the forefront. Pray and don't be embarrassed to ask people to pray for you because you'll need it. And so I'm curious, you have two sons, just like your father had two sons. And what, if you could leave for them word of wisdom that you didn't get dad, what would that word of wisdom be for your sons?
Yeah, in the book, as much as it is a memoir, it is kind of a note or a text, thread to this Gen Z millennial generation. I understand that I share my young professional counsel here that I didn't just start in the suit and in the office, right? I started outside the hall, passing out the little program and the agenda. And then I was coming in and clean up after the real meeting was had. So I said, it comes in steps and it doesn't come overnight, and you aren't always clear on where you're going. You got to have that faith. You got to have that belief in yourself to be successful. And I just said with my both of my sons last week something. I said, if you strive to be successful, if you build good habits, if you have good character, if you do the right thing, and you treat people well, more often than not, things will work out for you. It may not work out for you when or where or how you think it will work out for you, but it will work out for you, because I share with them and I share with young people all the time. I did not want to go into politics. I talk about that in the book. I did not plan to do anything I'm doing now, but I certainly appreciate the fact that I got this opportunity, because it is rewarding to do things beyond just the profit that I talked about. Because I was one who was focused on, what's my signing bonus going to be? What's my, annual bonus going to be? How much is the salary? What's the compensation? All those things. And I have never hit any of those great metrics that, 20 years ago, the 20-year version of me thought, I would be focused on. But yet, I think the work that I've done, the service I put in, has been as, if not more rewarding than anything I could have made it. I've gone on Wall Street, I've been a partner in this firm or whatever it may be. And, I try to tell my sons that you set that blueprint, that standard of the fact that you want to be the very best of whatever you commit your time to, whether it's art, whether it's coding, whether it's gaming, whether it's sports, whether it's debate, whether it's, school clubs, whatever it may be. Set it that you want to be the best, and then develop the habits in order to get there. And even if it's not over here, if it's not over there, it's more than likely going to work out in a way that is beneficial to you and others. And that would be what I would share with Gen Z and millennials, but also what I would say even with our peers is, I think we all, need to self-assess every now and then and be aware of who we think we are and who other people think we are.
Yeah. What would you say your life mission is?
I think, my life mission is to really make transformative change for people who of all backgrounds and ethnicities and races who have felt like they wouldn't see it. They wouldn't quite get it. One of the things I'm most proud of in my political career is increasing the funding for our public schools, something that had never been voted on before. And I did it in my first year in office. But it's one of the things I share in the book. I brought it up to our leadership probably 10 years before we did it, 2010, before I was even in office. And then I brought it up again when I ran for probate judge. I just didn't have the control to do it. And that's one of the things that kind of inspired me to run for mayor, because I couldn't really get the outcomes that I wanted. So my mission is to create that type of outcome that long after I'm gone from this office, and hopefully long after I'm gone from this earth, there will be people who will not only say that, yeah, there's a name on the wall, or there's somebody that served, but he was somebody that led us to a special place that benefited many, many others in a way that no one else had done in that time. And I just want to make sure that, I don't get too focused on myself, even with this book, that I forget what the real mission is. And the real mission is to bring about substantive change that helps people in a tangible way that they can feel and they can see and they can hear. And the symbolism matters, but the substance matters even more. And that's doesn't always gel with great politics. Doesn't always gel with, if you want to be popular. But when you're committed to doing what's right and you're committed to make a difference, then it's easy to reconcile the two.
Beautiful, man. Well, congratulations on your first book, which is called First Best: Lessons in Leadership and Legacy from Today's Civil Rights Movement. And it's an honor having you back on the show. And I can't wait to get a chance to connect in person again very soon.
Oh, man, likewise. Listen, I just want to say thank you for the opportunity and reaching out. You got a great audience, and we hope that they enjoy the book. There's some funny stories in there too. It's not all serious, but I think there's some lessons, some takeaways for all of us, regardless of age and stage. And it's not just a political book. It really is, to me, about that life's work and what those elders shared with us, and what we learned from them versus how we apply it now. And now that we're coming into that season of life, how we can kind of, leave some of those breadcrumbs for those folks coming behind us to really advance their cause and issues, whatever they may be. So it's been great talking with you, brother. Always appreciate you, and I appreciate the friendship and everything that you do, and things you shared and things you taught us through our friendship over the years. Just know that it doesn't go unnoticed, and just know that it's valued. Just appreciate all the love and support, brother.
If you like that video, you're going to love the next one. Click this thumbnail right here, and I'll see you over there.